that my ex had put Annika in an extremely difficult position. She had to reject me if she wanted to be accepted and loved by him. Essentially, Annika was manipulated and coerced into becoming his means of eliminating our family from her own life.
Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your stepfamily from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork.
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of stepfamily life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Hey there, welcome, and thanks for joining us in another episode of the Blended Family Coaching Show.
Hello,
We're so glad you're here. Hey, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, would you do us a great big favor? Head over and give us a rating or a review. We would love to hear your feedback, and we would love to continue building that rating and review so that other people might find us in this parenting and relationship realm, and you can be a part of helping us do that. So if you'd head over there now and do that, we'd really appreciate it. All right, well, let's dive in. One of the things we've discovered is that every parent we know wants the best for their kids. Kind of a silly statement, right? They want their kids to experience security, stability, and freedom in a lot of ways. And that's true for parents that are in first families, and it's especially true for those of us who have experienced divorce and now have kids moving between two homes. And for parents who have kids moving back and forth, there are varying degrees of tension and conflict that usually exist. We're actually going to talk more about that next week. I mean, there's a reason that you and your ex have divorced, right?
Yeah.
So the expectation that you're going to just agree on everything and create a stability between your homes easily and quickly might be an unrealistic expectation. Yeah. You're going to have some disagreements. You won't see eye to eye, and it's in those differences that sometimes conflict takes root. And sometimes one parent can take such a strong stance in their own ideas of how things should work with the kids that they take these disagreements to an extreme level. Yeah. One that the psychology world and the family court world would call parental alienation. Now, this is a tough thing to discuss, and it's a huge and really complicated topic. It's emotionally charged, and for those of us who've experienced it, it's really painful.
Yes, this can be extremely painful. This is an important topic, and it needs to be continually exposed and handled seriously, and also handled with care. So to do our part in contributing to that goal, we want to share some difficult pieces of our own story today, focused on our experience with parental alienation. Yeah. And this is going to be tough. This is not my favorite thing to talk about. I'll just say that up front, but this is important. We need to go there. So here's what we're going to do. We'll tell you about the most difficult season in our blended family journey, where we were in a battle to protect my parental rights. And it was filled with parental alienation dynamics. And after we share our story, we've got 6 tips for you to consider in your own story. And here's who this episode is really for. It's for those of you that are currently experiencing a true case of parental alienation. We want to encourage you. We want to bring hope to your situation.
Yeah, very much.
And also give you some practical things to think about as well. This episode is also for those that might be concerned about the signs of parental alienation. Maybe you've seen some things in your situation with your kids and you're concerned and you want to learn more. So we're glad that you're here. And this episode is also for those that might have a friend, a coworker, a relative, anyone that they know that might be experiencing parental alienation, and you want to come alongside them and be a support person and offer some help. So if that's you, we're glad you're here. Or if you just want to hear more about our painful story, well, we're glad you're here too.
Maybe you'll just get to hear the story and be like, hey, ours is not so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you can tell us how ours is not so bad. Well, look, before we jump into the story, let's just take a minute to talk about what exactly is parental alienation. So parental alienation occurs when one parent intentionally and systematically alienates a child from the other parent, their home, and their extended family. This parent is going to justify their actions as prudent and even necessary. They're going to create reasons for the child's separation from that other parent, even when there's no actual evidence to back up their misguided beliefs and accusations. Now, here's the thing. Parental alienation is not those common disagreements between exes or the general minor bad-mouthing that can sometimes happen between exes. In fact, last week in episode 41, we talked about a parental allegiance. It's a very different word, and that is way different than parental alienation. Well, while a parental allegiance is not healthy for kids, it's not something ideal that we want, and you might want to go back and listen to last week's if you missed it, but it's nowhere near the same extreme level of a parental alienation. And it's important that we understand the difference and we don't get the two confused. So parental alienation begins when one parent makes a choice to distance the child or all the kids from that other parent. Their intention is to create a permanent separation or a disruption in their relationship with that other parent. And sometimes we start questioning if we're in the middle of this. I know we wrestled with this question because we experienced a true case of parental alienation, and we're going to share about that. We wrestle with this question of, well, why? Well, why in the world would a parent do this? Like, don't we all know how important it is for kids to have a relationship and access to both parents, especially when both parents are functioning and healthy and everything seems to be fine?
It seems like common sense.
Yeah, it seems like common knowledge that divorced parents should honor and respect the kid's relationship with that other parent, right? We're taught that in the divorce class, that many states require all of that. And we just know that's what's best for the kids. So it seems unthinkably crazy that a parent would want to actually separate their kids and experience the pain of that separation from the other parent. And often we want to search for the why questions. Yeah,
we sure did.
We definitely did. But many times with parental alienation, there's just not a good answer to the why question. And we spend time and energy going, why is this happening? Why could it be happening? But we don't want to get stuck in that why question anymore. So rather than that, we're going to shift our focus a little bit and talk about the what, those things that we can actually be paying attention to that are going to help us to move forward and not just spin our wheels around the why. So here's a few things that we want to consider about what parental alienation is, and maybe some telltale signs that could be happening in somebody's story. So maybe we're going to see a possessive, a controlling, and oppressive approach, really unable to respect boundaries between the homes.
Yeah, and these are traits and attitudes of a parent.
Right. They might be prone to making false allegations, and they're misguided in their thinking and their conclusions. And they're really unable to accept the truth about what's going on in the other home, even when there's evidence that clearly disproves their accusations.
Yeah, they won't back down.
Sometimes they're jealous, territorial, vindictive, or really filled with rage, like real rage toward the other parent. They devalue or trivialize the child's relationship with the other parent and the need for their love. They do that both to the ex as well as to the child. Often they're unwilling to empathize with the other parent's perspectives, pain, or concerns. They just don't even want to listen to the other parent. Or are actually struggling with a narcissistic personality, very self-focused, and believe that they're superior to the other parent. These are just some of the telltale signs. And remember, they're acting on these signs and attitudes and taking it to an unhealthy, extreme level. So if you're co-parenting with someone who has multiples of these traits or attitudes that we just talked about, there might be things you need to pay attention to and wonder if I need to take some action around the 6 tips that we're going to share with you after the story.
Yeah, or at least open up some awareness.
Yeah, but before we get to those 6 tips, I know Kim is going to just share a little bit of our story.
So in our experience with parental alienation, we were really taken completely by surprise. We never really anticipated that we would be in this dynamic of parental alienation, even though my ex did exhibit some of the traits that we just talked about. We just didn't see it coming. Now, my ex and I co-parented peacefully 10 years following our divorce.
Yeah.
We were both really respectful of our daughter's relationship with each other, and we followed a 50-50 visitation schedule. And so from the time my daughter was 2 until she was 12, she really enjoyed spending time in both homes, and she was free to love both sets of parents and their extended family.
Yeah, that's where you were when I came into the picture, and I was amazed at how easily things went between the two of you, and enjoyed that for the first 6 years of our marriage, actually.
It was something that actually gave you confidence that maybe marrying me wasn't going to be a train wreck.
That's a story for another day.
But things started to change when Annika was 12. And we still fully don't have the whys. We don't understand why the attitudes of my ex suddenly shifted. There wasn't any big incident or any wrongdoing. We weren't experiencing any conflict, really.
Yeah, nothing major.
He just decided that Annika didn't need to spend time in our home anymore. And he told me that it was best for her to be under his fatherly influence now. So kind of that I didn't matter. My role was no longer necessary. That was the message that I was given. When I say this was surprising, it certainly caught us off guard, but there were some signs that kind of went under our radar, unfortunately. But there was a big sign. One day, I went to pick up Annika at school after her track practice, like I normally would on my day, and she wasn't there. And I'm going, where's my child? It was bizarre. I frantically called my ex to find out, have the plans changed? Do you know where she is? What's going on? And that was when he just kind of matter-of-factly told me that our daughter wouldn't be spending time at our house anymore. Apparently, he had sent me an email earlier that day, which I hadn't seen yet. But apparently this email informed me that Annika wouldn't be at school after track practice and that she'd be staying with him from now on.
Yeah.
Whew. So this incident was really unsettling. In fact, I'm getting unsettled.
That's a kind way to say it.
I'm getting unsettled just talking about it. Like my heart rate is going up. It was really difficult. But even in the difficulty of the moment, I was able to stand up to my ex. And I basically demanded that Annika be returned to our home for her scheduled visitation. Yeah. Eventually he did.
Relent in that
he
situation.
Relented. Yep. We got her back in our home for her usual visitation, but she was a different kid.
Yeah.
She was guarded. She was quiet. She seemed confused, and she refused to talk about what had happened. Yeah. She just shut down. So little did we know that this was the beginning of our difficult journey with parental alienation. Now, I kind of just let that, like I said, kind of go under the radar. Like that was really bizarre and strange. But I kind of just assumed, all right, well, I put my foot down and things are just going to go back to normal.
Sure.
But that wasn't the case. A few weeks following that incident, where my ex tried to keep my daughter from me and where he told me she no longer needed to spend time in our home, he orchestrated another confrontation. And this time, he called me up and he requested a meeting with me alone. He wanted to meet.
Yeah, he was very specific that only you were to come.
Yes. Yeah. And when I showed up, he wasn't alone. He had brought our daughter with him. Now, what he did was he positioned Annika in front of me. Physically, and he gave her instructions. Tell your mom what you want, Annika. And she was really nervous. She was upset. I could tell she was staring at the floor, kind of shuffling her feet. It was really awkward. And he continued to prompt her until she just kind of flatly said to me, I want to live at my dad's house now.
Yeah. And as a reminder, so she was about 12.
Yep, she was 12 at the time. And I was just blindsided. I was overcome with emotion. My daughter and I had a really close relationship.
Yeah.
Yet in this moment, she couldn't even look me in the eye. I kept trying to connect with her and look at her, and she just wouldn't even look at me. And I couldn't understand why she would make such a request. Like I said, things had been going really smoothly.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize is that my ex had an agenda. So at that point, he went on about how this would be the best thing for Annika, and if I really loved her, I'd agree to this new arrangement. This is what she wants.
We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion. Which basically was she just wasn't going to come back to our house.
Yeah. Now, of course, this was his opinion, but he believed my daughter didn't need to spend time with me. It just wasn't necessary. So even in my confusion, I tried to assess the situation, but my emotions seemed to override the reality of what was going on.
Yeah, that had to have been such an emotional moment. I remember you coming home after that meeting.
Yeah, I was just absolutely stunned. I was hurt. I was concerned for my daughter. What was going on? I was confused. I also didn't want to cause conflict.
Why? Why do you think that was?
I didn't want to rock the boat. I felt like I wanted to give my daughter what she wanted, but in that moment, I really don't think she could articulate what she wanted.
Right.
But I didn't know it. In the moment, it was so painful.
Would fear be a word?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you were afraid.
Fear. And, my ex is a very domineering and controlling person, so he definitely took over. Now, at this point, it seemed that I'd been stripped of any authority to even make a decision. That's how it felt. As if my opinion didn't matter, and I was simply expected to go along with the plan that they had already come up with.
Yeah.
That's kind of the trap that I fell into. And this was a horrible moment for me.
Sure, of course.
I was left feeling overwhelmed, like I said, and definitely felt powerless. My own child was being used to pressure me into a scheduling change that would rob me of my relationship with her.
I like the way you said that, a scheduling change, which was she's just not coming to your house anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's not just a scheduling change, honey. That was extreme.
Yeah. Well, it was presented that, she'd see you every now and then.
Right.
But we didn't really understand what it meant. Yeah. It was being sugar-coated at that time, definitely, to get me to go along with it.
Yeah.
The bottom line is I was being emotionally manipulated.
And so was Annika.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we both lost our voice. Her voice became his voice, and I didn't feel I had a voice. I was unable to stand up for what I believed was best for my daughter. And honestly, in that moment, I failed miserably. I took the bait of emotional manipulation, and it's one of my biggest regrets.
Yeah, it was a tough moment for sure.
Yeah, this one meeting where I was pressured to make a decision and felt powerless eventually led to parental alienation. Over the next 3 years, as we worked within the family court system to protect my parental rights, my ex fabricated lies about me and our household. he brainwashed Annika and coached her to repeat many of his lies. She was kind of like this little robotic parrot.
Mm-hmm.
She repeated these lies to our court-appointed child advocates that were involved in the case. And because of this, we lost many battles in court.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up with a parenting plan that favored my ex.
Yeah.
My parental rights had been somewhat preserved through the process, but the visitation schedule was still very inadequate.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of it all, we were emotionally crushed and financially drained.
Yeah.
So it's been about 12 years since that fateful meeting with my ex, where he positioned my daughter in front of me and made this huge change. Since then, I've come to realize that my ex had put Annika in an extremely difficult position.
Mm-hmm.
She had to reject me if she wanted to be accepted and loved by him.
Mm.
Essentially, Annika was manipulated and coerced into becoming his means of eliminating our family from her own life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
what you just said
crazy.
there is so much at the root of many parental alienation cases where one parent essentially is withholding their love until they see the child reject the other parent.
Yep.
It's a game of who's going to love who more. And it can be really, really challenging.
Yeah.
And in fact, this was an incredibly difficult season for us as a family, not just for Kim. Certainly it was hard on Annika, as Kim just described that. It was difficult for our family too, including our two mutual kids.
Yeah,
they got thrust, they were just little, and they got thrust in the middle of
their
so
sister.
much.
She was hardly ever around.
And it challenged our marriage as well. We really struggled. And as we continue to coach and support step couples, we're discovering that, unfortunately, parental alienation is not that uncommon.
Yeah.
We've had the privilege, really, of supporting several couples experiencing this difficult dynamic. And we've discovered some tips that are going to help you to be proactive in your awareness of the risk that may exist for you, as well as prepare you to handle the challenges that will come with true parental alienation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 6 tips that are going to help you if you're in the middle of the battle, if you're concerned that you're at risk, or if you want to share this with someone you might know who could be dealing with parental alienation at some level. So let's dive into that. Tip number 1, evaluate your current parenting plan and see where it might be weak. One of the best ways to protect your parental rights is to have a really good, solid parenting plan on file with the court. Don't rely on verbal agreements with your ex, and make sure that your parenting plan is really specific.
Yeah, this is one of the root things that cause problems in our situation. Because back when my ex and I divorced, we were able to verbally agree on the visitation. So our parenting plan ended up being really vague and non-specific. And there was just way too much room for interpretation and for him to insert what he wanted while disregarding my rights or what was best for our daughter. There was just way too many gaps. So evaluate and see where are the gaps. Now, we don't want you to be fearful here.
Yeah, it's not about being afraid.
But we want you to be realistic about how quickly things can change. Now that you're divorced from your ex, you can't always know for sure what's going on with them, their emotional status, their opinions, or their future plans. If they're dealing with any kinds of insecurities or feeling threatened, that can be a problem. So it can be very difficult to change a parenting plan or secure your rights once parental alienation has begun. So if you feel that you're in danger of experiencing parental alienation and that it would be a good idea to protect yourself, be sure that you have a parenting plan on file now that's going to make it really difficult for your ex to alienate you from your kids in the future. Don't leave open gaps.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you're concerned you're at risk, now's the time to dust off that old plan and just find out, like, how specific is this? All right. So that's tip 1, evaluate that current parenting plan. Tip 2, research parental alienation so that you can understand exactly what it is and what it's not. You're not going to learn all those details in this episode, right?
No, this is a big topic.
Yeah, we want to encourage you to be intentional about educating yourself if you really think that you're co-parenting with someone who's capable of using that emotional manipulation or enlisting your kids in the process to really control your parenting decisions. Your best defense sometimes is just understanding when you're dealing with someone who can be really irrational or unstable, or has these traits that we mentioned earlier in the episode. We like to say, we want you to prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got to do your research. Now, Dr. Richard Warshak is a parental alienation expert, and he authored the book called Divorce Poison.
Yeah, I mean, this book was such a lifesaver throughout our difficult season with parental alienation. I was so overwhelmed with frustration and confusion and anger. I desperately missed my daughter, and I didn't know how to connect with her or how to get through to her. In this book, I really gained some practical direction. I discovered some great insights that he offers, and I didn't feel so alone.
Yeah.
Dr. Warshak also has a great website that features some practical tools in helping kids to break through parental alienation, as well as recommendation for parenting plans and legal considerations.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what? He shares a lot of practical tips around how to talk to your kids. Well, what things to say, and equally as important, what not to say that could create more challenge for them. Mm-hmm. Some of these things are actually counterintuitive. So learning this stuff is going to really help you navigate forward in a meaningful and intentional way.
Yeah.
Now, you know, there's a whole other segment of this that you might also be in this situation where maybe you have adult children, but you're estranged because you were alienated years ago while they were growing up. We hear more and more of these stories. Now, if that's you, we want to encourage you to check out the resources from Ryan Thomas. And Ryan offers a ton of valuable insights from his own perspective of being a child who experienced parental alienation himself for many years. So he's all grown up now, and his story is absolutely incredible.
It really is.
And his mission is to help parents reconnect with those children after that high conflict, rejection, alienation, and estrangement that's happened over a period of years. Mm-hmm. So Ryan Thomas has a great website, and he's got several books. He even has a whole load of free videos out there on YouTube that can help you better understand how alienation happens and how it impacts kids and what you can do to reconnect with that adult child that maybe you've really been missing for many years.
Yeah.
Now, we'll put a link to both Dr. Warshak's resources as well as Ryan Thomas in the show notes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So tip 2, research parental alienation and understand what it is and what it's not. What's tip 3?
Tip 3 is get legal help. It's critical to get good legal counsel as soon as possible to protect your parental rights. Now, an attorney can help you modify your parenting plan and guard against parental alienation. Your lawyer might recommend counseling for the kids or ask the court to assign a guardian ad litem, which is a neutral advocate for the kids. But don't hesitate to get the help you need if you're concerned about parental alienation. You might also consider mediation as a first step.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point, because sometimes when we say, hey, get legal help, what people hear is lawyer up, and they get sick to their stomach.
Yeah.
Like
nobody
wants to do
up.
that. But consider this. Maybe just a first step is a consultation. Mm-hmm. Simply to say, I'm concerned about this. Here's what my current parenting plan says. What kind of things do you recommend?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you have some legitimate reasons to believe that you're at risk of parental alienation, what we want you to know is don't wait.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
You know, sometimes we have this fear, and I know I had this fear of rocking the boat. I just want to keep the peace, so I'm not going to do anything right now, and we'll just wait and see. But that can keep you from taking action that you need to take to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You know, we've gotten stuck here too.
Yeah, that's right.
Several years before this all happened, we actually went and did exactly what Mike said. We had a consultation with a lawyer.
Yep.
We asked about what our parenting plan looked like.
So this moment was triggered by some disagreement with Kim's ex that really had to do with child support more than anything.
Yeah, and he was making threats.
He was threatening.
He was making some threats and throwing it out there. So we went to see a lawyer to see, are these threats valid? Anyway, the lawyer took one look at the parenting plan and said, oh my goodness, there are gaps. Your rights are not protected
huge exposure.
here.
Yeah.
But at that point, we weren't experiencing parental alienation, nor did we even have any.
We just didn't have any idea what was coming.
Yeah.
And we chose not to, out of fear.
Not to rock the boat.
We chose not to take action. And again, action doesn't mean we're going back to court. Sometimes it simply means, you know what, this worked for the kids 5 years ago, but things have changed.
Yeah.
And we just need to reevaluate it. Sometimes it means mediation, and that can be a really simple process.
Yeah.
All we really want to point out is if you have a concern, and you've taken that tip number 1 and you've evaluated and found that your parenting plan is left wanting.
Or you're vulnerable.
Yeah. Then it might be time to consult. How do we move forward to make sure that we limit that exposure?
Yeah. What are some steps that we need to take?
Yeah. So don't freak out about that tip. It's a hard one, but don't freak out. No. All right. So tip number 4, intentionally invest in your marriage.
Yes.
Listen, if you're in the middle of a parental alienation battle, or if you're concerned that one might be in your future, we know how hard that is on your current relationship. I'm telling you, this was the most difficult season in our marriage, and it brought us right to the brink of divorce. We almost decided to call it quits.
Yeah.
Now, we've made it through, but really the only reason we've made it through is because we made that intentional investment in our marriage, and we did that not only just in date nights and things that are very common advice for supporting your marriage, but also because we acted on the next tip. And that is tip number 5, which is reach out for emotional and strategic support. Yeah. We got ourselves into counseling as individuals and as a couple, and we had to work through with mentors and coaches. How in the world are we going to survive this and move our relationship forward?
This is a tough battle, and you're going to need encouragement and support along the way. There's no doubt.
Yep. And you're also going to need someone who can objectively help you evaluate your circumstances and coach or counsel you in how to strategically move forward.
Yes.
Now, this isn't the same as legal help. Lawyers are different. This is more about working through the pain, as well as taking wise action with your words and decisions to protect your relationships with your kids and in your marriage, and position your discussions with that ex who's trying to alienate you using strategies that keep you on track.
Yeah.
A really good coach or counselor who understands blended family dynamics and parental alienation, that's what you're looking for.
Exactly.
And we would love to help you if you want to talk to us about that. We provide that kind of support, and you can just reach out to us.
Feel
Find
free
us on
to
the
book
website.
a free consultation.
Totally.
You got nothing to lose.
All right. So that was tip number 4 and 5. Intentionally invest in your marriage and reach out for emotional and strategic support. So tip number 6, our final tip, what would you say?
Keep your kids out of the middle.
Oh, yes.
As much as you possibly can. We mentioned Dr. Richard Warshak, who is our parental alienation expert, and he says this: an alienating parent will enlist children as allies in a battle against the other parent. Through persistent bad-mouthing, lies, exaggerations, overlooking positives, and drum-beating negatives, they manipulate their children to reject the other parent. He goes on to say that children reject a parent with whom they previously had a good relationship, often paralleling the other parent's negative attitudes. The children's treatment of the rejected parent is disproportionate to that parent's behavior and inconsistent with the prior history of the parent-child relationship. So here's the point. If you're truly being systematically alienated by your ex, one of their number 1 strategies is to put the kids in the middle.
Yeah, so that ex is purposely actually putting them in the middle when parental alienation is happening.
And that's exactly what happened in our situation.
Yeah. Yep.
I was able to stand up to my ex when it was just him and I discussing the topic, but when he used my daughter to manipulate me,
it was hard.
everything changed. So what that means is that you'll need to work extra hard and with great wisdom and how you'll keep your kids out of the middle of this battle. You've got to do your part. So here's something you can say to your child if they've been put in the middle and if they're inappropriately trying to influence your decisions or negotiate for the other parent. Just simply say this: listen, honey, your dad and I are the ones who will be making these kinds of decisions because we're the adults. You don't need to worry about it because we're capable of choosing what's best for you.
And just keep saying it over and over. You'll feel like a broken record.
You can be that broken record and just do it with empathy and with love, but just don't allow them to engage in this.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest mistakes I made, was allowing my daughter to be there for that meeting.
To discover more ways to keep your kids out of the middle, you might want to go back to episode 33 called How to Cope with a Difficult Ex and Protect Your Kids. And you might even consider going all the way back to episodes 7 and 8 to help you support your kids when you see that they're hurting, or maybe they're angry with you and they're repeating some of the slander that they're hearing in your ex's home.
Yeah.
And of course, we will link to all of those things in the show notes.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, we want to say that if you're in a season of parental alienation, we are so sorry you're there, and we know how painful it is.
Yeah.
We also want you to know that you are not powerless.
That's right.
Often it can feel that way, but where we left off in our story was not the end of our journey.
That's right.
Through some incredible circumstances that we would say was nothing short of miraculous.
Yeah.
My parental rights, and more importantly, our relationship with Annika was restored, and the truth was revealed. It came out, and we realized that the battle we fought was well worth the fight.
So worth it, yeah.
Yeah. So many times throughout this journey, I felt powerless with my ex, but I discovered my voice, and my daughter witnessed that, giving her a voice too.
Yep.
It was not all sunshine and roses after that, believe me. We had many more struggles along the way. And in fact, Annika is now almost 25. She still has some emotional challenges that are rooted back to our parental alienation experience. However, I know that we're in a much better place now because we stood firm in the truth.
Yep.
We didn't give up. And we surrounded ourselves with the support we needed. This is not hopeless. You can do those things too.
That's right. That's right. I just want to thank you guys for listening to our story. And just remind you, it'd be great if you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating or a review. We'd love to see that over on Apple Podcasts. And we'd love for you to tune in next week. And we're going to share 3 ways that you can create more consistency and stability between your kids' 2 homes, even if you're stuck in that conflict.
That's right.
These are going to be some lessons we learned even through our parental alienation journey that we were able to still create as much consistency as possible for Annika. So make sure you tune in next week, and that makes this episode a wrap.
Until next time.